Go up to File, New File, Print, A4, Create. Drag in your car object. Select the line tool. Select the fill color and set it to red. Hit OK. Draw out the perspective lines according to the lines in the image. Where those lines converge, draw a straight horizon line. Group your lines and call the group lines. Delete your background layer. Drag in your background image and scale it up. And line up the horizon in the image with your horizon line. Drag the background image below the car. Hide your lines group. Use the lasso tool to roughly cut around the vehicle and click the layer mask button. Turn your lines group on. Select the background layer, hit Ctrl T, scale it up to match the vehicle. Turn your lines group off. Select the rectangular marquee tool, select the bottom half of the image, hit Ctrl J, hit Ctrl T and resize. Put your background layers into a group and call it background. Select the car layer, hide the mask, grab the pen tool and cut out the vehicle as neatly as possible. Once the vehicle is selected, right click, make selection and hit OK. Unhide the layer mask, delete the layer mask, and then click the layer mask button to create a new layer mask. Select the background layer group, hit Ctrl T, and do some final adjustments. Select the car layer, double click the layer mask, and refine the mask. Right click the car layer and convert to Smart Object. Go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, set the Gaussian Blur to around 0.8, hit OK. Hold Ctrl and click the car layer to make a selection. Select the background group and create a new solid color layer. Use the eyedropper and select one of the shadows in the background layer. Hit OK. Right click that layer and click Convert to Smart Object. Go up to Edit, Transform, Distort, and then go Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. Adjust the layer so the rear tire lines up with the layer. Go up to Edit, Transform, Distort. And now carefully adjust the shadow so it is in a very similar direction to the shadows in the current background layer. With the color fill layer selected, change the blending mode to multiply. And then go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Set the blur to around 3.1. We're going to select the color fill layer and we're going to change the opacity to around 75%. Select the color fill layer and create a layer mask. We get our brush tool, select a default soft brush. Adjust your brush settings as you need to. And it is set to black color. And just start painting away any bush or object that's in the way of that shadow. So that's what we're doing here. Once that's done, create a new layer. Get your brush tool, color pick the shadow in the background layer. Select the blending mode and change it to multiply. And just paint in some additional shadows under the vehicle. Create a new layer. Select the darkest area of the tire of the vehicle and paint in some extra shadows. You can even select your erase tool and lightly erase some of those shadows that we just painted. We're going to group those shadow layers and we're going to call them shadow. Select the background group, create a new curves adjustment and clip it to the group. We are now adjusting the background shadows to match the shadows of the vehicle as close as we can. Select the car layer and create a hue saturation adjustment and clip it to the car. And desaturate slightly. Now create a curves adjustment and clip it above the hue saturation. We are now adjusting the values of the car shadows to match the shadows that we painted, as well as some further curves adjustments to match the vehicle in general to the background light. We will then add a color balance adjustment and we're going to clip that above the curves. We are now adjusting the color balance to adjust the vehicle to the scene colors. I'll adjust the midtones and highlights and then do a second pass just to double check. And I will check the before and after. We will then create a new layer and clip it to above the color balance. This will be our edge refinement layer where I color pick colors from the edge of the vehicle and then I paint in any imperfections around the edge of the vehicle. We'll then select our curves layer and make some further adjustments to the values. Select those layers, group them, and name the group Car. Go up to Image, Image Rotation, Flip Canvas Horizontal to see how it looks flipped. Press Ctrl Z to undo. Select the background group, group the layers inside that group, and move the curves into the background group and clip it to that group. Select the background group, hit Ctrl J to duplicate, right click that group and click Convert to Smart Object. Move that background image above the car and clip it to the car. This will be our reflection layer. Go up to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical and adjust it accordingly. Change the blending mode of that layer to Hard Light. Go up to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and desaturate slightly. With that layer selected, we're going to create a layer mask, and we're going to invert that mask by pressing Ctrl I. We're going to select our brush tool, we're going to select a soft brush, make sure we have white selected as the foreground color, and just start painting in some of that reflection. Once that's done, select that layer, go up to Filter and Gaussian Blur and set the blur to around 3.1. Select the shadow group and then create a new layer. Use the eyedropper tool to select one of the colors behind the vehicle in the dust and then get a soft brush and just start gently painting in some dust behind the vehicle. You can also distort that layer by hitting Ctrl T and making some further adjustments to that dust. Just make sure it doesn't clip under the car. Change the opacity of that layer to around 70%. Select the top layer and create a new layer. Use the eyedropper tool to select one of the colors in the foreground and then gently paint in some foreground dust. You can also hit Ctrl T and make some further adjustments. Change the opacity to around 75%. Go up to Image, Image Rotation, Flip Canvas Horizontal, press Ctrl Z. Go to your Layers panel, open up the car group and select that Edge Refinement layer that we did. Change the name to Edges and we are going to do some additional edge refinement. Turn off that dust layer at the foreground. Once that's done, you can turn that foreground dust layer back on. I then readjusted the opacity of that foreground dust layer to about 65%. Create a new curves adjustment layer, add a point at the shadows and adjust the highlights. Select the layer mask of the curves and hit Ctrl I to invert. Take your soft brush tool, make sure the foreground color is set to white and just paint in a little bit of light on the side where that sun is coming from. Hit Ctrl T to make further adjustments. Adjust the opacity to around 50%.